I was really intrigued by your company. First of all, your company is really fun on social media, talking about making stuff sizzle and all the puns with the content and bacon,
Yes.
and that's a lot of fun. But one of the things, and I got to be honest, and I do this for almost every firm, agency, vendor. The first thing I do is I get on LinkedIn and I look at the company profile. I look at all the employees, and one of the things I noticed that really stood out was the amount of copywriters, not just content writers, copywriters. And so first, can you kind of explain the difference between, maybe someone that's just writing a generic blog versus an actual copywriter?
Yeah, I hope I can. So there's really lots of different types of content. We look at content from the framework of what we refer to as the flywheel. It's been called the funnel, but there's different types of content needed to support really different stages of the customer journey. So there's like initial content that maybe more voyeuristic, people just kind of checking you out, might enjoy your content. It builds awareness, but they may not necessarily ever be a customer or client. Or it may be they're very early on in the process and they're not one today. And so that might be what I consider more what you were referring to as like general content. It's not necessarily, it's strategic, but it might not necessarily be as intentional on creating a specific action. Content that's written, I might refer to it as conversion copy, is what I refer to as a little bit more copywriting, where it's very intentional. It's very strategic, and if it's effective or not by the result. So, and again, everything we do, there's some way to measure the result. Some is a little bit, maybe more fluffy, like more website traffic, more social followers might be kind of more, that doesn't pay the bills, right? But it's part of the journey. Whereas someone opting into something, someone raising their hand saying, I want to be part of this community, someone booking a call with you, that's where more expertise is required for what might be referred to as copywriting.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I see in like that persuasive style that you're trying to convince a consumer to take action is for attorneys, that have these bottom of the funnel transactional pages, these practice area pages. A lot of times they're just really generic. They don't highlight their USPs well, their taglines. They may on the homepage. When you get to the homepage, they may do a good job. And I do see some PI firms that do a good job of like differentiating themselves there. But on the individual pages, those are sales pages.
Yeah.
Those are where you're trying to convince the consumer to use you versus someone else. And I see that that's lacking. And I also just in general in Google AdWords ad copy and other areas where there's a lot of direct response intention. And so that's why I wanted to call that out specifically, because your agency is so different than just someone that's churning out 2,000 blogs per month.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the key, at least from the perspective that I look at it, it's all about being as human as possible. So even though it's sales pages and sales copy, we all know no one wants to be sold to, right? But the more authentic you can be, and I think especially, with attorneys, because some might say that space is a commodity space, right? There's lots of attorneys in that space. So how do you stand out and differentiate? And I think you do that by letting your personality come through, letting your point of view come through, and, being, more vulnerable and authentic versus, trying to sell something, although you need to have a way for someone to buy something. So it's not like, don't do that, but do it with a human touch. And I think to your point too, I think a lot of companies focus more on top of the funnel. And then they kind of go lighter on middle and bottom. And, that's kind of where the juice is, but everyone's always talking about more leads. But then you might have a lot of leads who you're not nurturing, you're not staying in touch with, you're not, even after maybe they do business with you, you're not continuing to form a relationship with them and stay top of mind. Hopefully they won't need you again and again, but you
Right.
never know.
I hear this on a lot of different ways, and know, like, trust, and they kind of like you. People like to do business with who they like. And I heard we had Ed Herman from Brown and Crouppen on in a really early episode. He talked about brand love. You got to make them love you, and his marketing is very unique, and he stands out with three lawyers eating sandwiches, or Ed versus cereal, and things like that. And I think it's very creative, because at the end of the day, I think standing out on social, especially if you're in the legal vertical, is you got to be a little bit entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's great that he's doing that. I'm sure it's paying off.
For sure. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about inbound marketing and attracting, engaging, delighting. And so how does inbound empower a potential client to take action?
Yeah.
What is that? How are you trying to persuade them to take action, particularly, let's just say, on social?
Yeah. So, the beauty of having so much information available to us today is, whether it's, your business customer or consumer, they're doing research or they're browsing when they want, how they want. And so it's so important to have content to show up. Like, showing up, is so important. And having, we kind of put content into 4 buckets: educational, informational, entertaining, and inspiring. And so having content that can support those pillars. So if someone is searching for you, maybe not specifically you, but a key problem that you solve, then when they find the information about you, it is kind of speaking to you, but it's again, not trying to sell you. It's giving you the information you need so that you can feel comfortable about making that buying decision. There's a really powerful statistic that I think it's like 70-something% of the purchase decision is typically made before a prospect engages with you. And what that means is they've done a lot of the research. They've checked you out. They might have read testimonials. They've gotten to know you. So by the time they actually reach out to you, it's really kind of yours to lose. And that's the beauty of content, is it's kind of like sales lubrication, right? Because before, you had to maybe actually speak to someone, or use a lot of outbound marketing, TV ads, billboards, flyers, to get attention and to get someone to know you. Well, those things still have their place, but even if someone gets a compelling flyer in the mail, let's see, and they're still going to check you out. They're still probably not going to just go right from that to picking up the phone, but they will go to your website. They will go to your social media. And if what they find there reinforces, then they're going to take the next step. So that's why it's just so important.
I couldn't agree more. I kind of went down the rabbit hole listening to the Demand Gen podcast with Chris Walker, and where he really differentiates the difference between lead generation and demand generation. And it was so eye-opening. And that's where attribution's murky in demand generation versus lead generation. And I think they both have their place, but I do agree with you. It really accelerates that sales cycle, because they already know you. They're ready to hire. They don't have to be convinced. Once they've been educated, once they know they like you, now it's just a matter of them going to your website and just picking up the phone. They're not going to be bouncing around talking to many individuals. They're going to just be talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that, like, giving your audience as much education, kind of showing them kind of what's behind the kimono as much as possible. There's a saying, an educated customer is your best customer. And so, I think that the more you can educate them, then again, the more they're going to trust you, because they're like, okay, if I wanted to do this on my own, and maybe this isn't applied to the legal space as much, but I could, but why do I want to do it on my own? It's not the best and highest use of my time. So I'm just a big believer, and give your audience as much education, as much tools, as possible, so that if they want to go do it on their own, they're armed with the best of the best. But if they want to outsource it and have it actually get done, then they'll reach out to you.